Sometimes. You know, I have pastors, I have the privilege of talking to leaders of churches these days more than ever. And outside of my ministry to this church and my family and my own life, the thing that I'm feeling drawn to a lot is just talking to pastors and helping them. So I'm trying to uncover what is it. Let me just tell you what I think about Living Hope. You know, the dramas are cool and the videos are good. All the things are good. Those are not things that draw people to God. It's grace that draws people to God. And when I watched, and I was in the back, and watching you sing this song, Fields of Grace, I see the tears. I see your heart. I see a husband hug a wife like, that's right. We were in religion, and now we're embraced by grace, and it's over, and I don't have to fight it anymore. I see how grace has affected you, some of you. Unfortunately, for some of us, we're still kind of playing this whole image management thing. And what you got to do is get to the end of yourself, like Paul, like John Newton, like myself. Oh, I prayed a prayer and I thought I knew God and all that stuff. But it wasn't until after saying to Dwayne, who would ever want to be a Christian? 18, 19 years ago, I said these words. Crossing the I-5 bridge, I can take you to the place I said them. Who would ever, it's like, are you kidding me? I owned a business. I had other things going on. I was 25 years old. I was like, I don't need God. Anybody who needs God is a weak person. Came out of my mouth. 2 months later, I found myself in a hospital, facing possibly dying. And then after that, hearing somebody say, God's grace is there for you. And I remember thinking this. Why would God want me after I said those words? Because God's grace is not about, nothing you can do ever in your life will make God love you more. Nothing you can do in your life will ever make God love you less. So what are you waiting for? Maybe later some of you need to come and just sit in this chair of grace. And maybe for you it's just simply an act of, okay. I can choose to be like the priest and I can work. And I can work, and I can work, and I can work. Or I can choose to accept this invitation. You know the truth about grace? God will not pick you up and put you in the chair. And wherever you go, you'll see a chair. Always there'll be a chair of grace. When you wake up in a week from now and you failed, you'll look and you'll see a chair. And I want you to remember this chair of grace. When you're with your kids and you say words that you regret, you'll look after those words and you'll see a chair of grace, and that will always be a reminder of the grace of God for your life. Because nothing you can do can ever make God love you more. Nothing you can do will ever make God love you less. That's the rest of grace, friends. That's the first thing. And you can't really find grace until you know you need it. And you won't know you need it until you know how broken you are. Here's the second thing. The second thing I want to talk about is, and this is kind of like, okay, first level, if you want to call it a level or a circle or whatever, this first thing about grace is simply this. It's almost like a wedding, kind of, and let me explain. I went to a wedding. It's the first wedding I haven't done in like 5 years. Tyler, Dave's son, got married, and I was at this wedding, and I was sitting there, and I was noticing, as a participant, I was noticing how you can plan everything about a wedding. What music is played, when you'll enter the room, who's in the wedding party, what food will be served, when it will start, what date it'll be on. I sat there and thought, that's just like faith. You know, the day you come to Christ is like the wedding day. And we are called the bride of Christ. So there's a lot of parallels. But the interesting thing is, you can plan a wedding to the nth degree. You cannot plan a marriage. So the second level of grace is simply this. I call it the mess of grace. It's the mess of grace. You know why? The mess of grace is so important to talk about. Once you come to Christ, if you don't realize, life still happens, messes still happen, people still betray you, people still talk behind your back, you'll still get emails, you'll lose a job and you shouldn't have lost it. You'll have someone break up with you as a boyfriend or girlfriend. You'll have a wife. I mean, you'll just have mess in life. That's just what part of it. Paul, who was the best of the best of the best of the best. Check out his problems. Now tell me if this is a mess to you. I'll read some passages that are not going to be on the screen. It's in 2 Corinthians. I have worked harder, been put in jail more often, been whipped more times without number. I have faced death again and again. 5 times the Jews gave me 39 lashes. 5 times 39 lashes. 40 lashes meant death. 39 was to take a person right to the verge of death. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. Once I spent a whole night and a day adrift at sea. I have traveled many weary miles. I have faced dangers from flooded rivers and robbers. I have faced danger from my own people, the Jews, as well as the Gentiles. I have faced dangers in the cities, in the deserts, and on the stormy seas. I have faced danger from men who claim to be Christians but are not. I have lived with weariness and with pain and sleepless nights, and often I have been hungry, thirsty, and gone without food. I have shivered with cold without enough clothing to keep me warm. Now, as a Jewish person, he never had any of these problems. He had his life, man, religion is like that. You work hard and you manage your life and you kind of manage God, and God is kind of like, I'll call you when I need you, like, stay, God. I'm going out Friday night now. You stay right here. And Paul went through a lot of stuff, a lot of pain. And he goes on the next few verses and he says this, to keep me from becoming conceited, because of these surpassingly great revelations, there was given me a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. And I'll stop right there. He's saying the mess happens. Danger happens. Life happens. But coming to following Jesus doesn't make it, it's all safe and comfortable now. And yet he's saying, and I prayed, and we don't know. For Paul was a single person. Some people think that it was sexual temptation that he had in his life, and he wanted it taken away. Some people think because of his eyesight, because of what he went through on the road to Damascus, possibly. The blinding light possibly made him not be able to see very well the rest of his life. I mean, there's all these theories. Here's the point. The thorn in the flesh is simply this. It's a reminder of God that you're not your own. It's a reminder from God that the pain you have, physical pain, the anger you struggle with, something about your body you don't like, something about your mind, something about something you don't like. Could it be, you pray. But could it be when the day's over, instead of being mad or blaming, could it be possible that you tell God what Paul said with his thorn in the flesh? This is what he said. He said to me, my grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness. I want to read that again. My grace is sufficient for you, God says to Paul, and God says to you. Some of you have a thorn, you have something, you have a propensity to anger. You have a propensity to sexual temptation. You have a propensity to worry all the time. You doubt things. You have this thing about you don't like is the thing possibly God has allowed in you to keep you humble, that you're not your own anymore. Definitely pray. Pray.